My name is Ava Sterling, 23 years old. The chandelier in the White Family Country Club dining room catches the afternoon light just right, sending fractured rainbows across mahogany that costs more than most people's cars. I watch dust motes drift through Eleanor's cloud of Chanel No. 5 as I follow the maitre d' to what he calls the family table, with that knowing smile he reserves for people about to get bad news over good wine. Arthur checks his Rolex before I even sit down, third time in 30 seconds. Eleanor adjusts her pearls with the precise motion of someone who has practiced this gesture in a mirror. Meredith positions her iPhone at an angle that would make a film student proud, her smile sharp enough to draw blood. Everyone in their assigned seats, everyone playing their part in whatever intervention they've rehearsed. Ava, Eleanor's voice has that particular warmth she uses when she wants something. You look lovely, darling. I'm wearing the same gray sweater I wore last Tuesday. She didn't notice it then, either. I sit in the chair the maitre d' pulls out, the one that faces all three of them like I'm about to defend a dissertation to a hostile committee. The leather creaks. Someone in the kitchen drops a pan. Normal sounds in a very abnormal moment. Eleanor slides a slim velvet box across the table, the kind of box that usually holds jewelry. Her fingers leave it positioned exactly between the salt and pepper shakers, perfectly aligned with the table's edge. A fresh start, darling. We think you'll adore Austin. I open the box. One-way plane ticket. Departure in 48 hours. Arthur places a check beside it with surgical precision, his banker hands steady. Your seed capital, Ava. $5,000, he says. Use it wisely. The check is already signed. Already dated. They printed it before I even arrived. Meredith shifts her phone a fraction of an inch to the left, getting my face in better light. Her Yale Law Review editor, smile, widens. She's been waiting for this moment, probably planned which filter she'll use when she posts the video. I recognize this performance, the synchronized movements, the rehearsed lines. They've been planning this for months, and I'm supposed to crumble right on cue. Instead, I let the silence stretch. Let it sit there between the velvet box and the crystal water glasses. Eleanor mistakes it for shock. Meredith thinks it's the build-up to the breakdown she wants on camera. Arthur clears his throat, readying his tough love speech. My mind drifts back to last year, the annual White Family Charity Gala at the Ritz-Carlton. I'd come straight from TerraSense field testing and hadn't had time to change. My hiking boots were still a bit dusty. I thought they'd understand. I thought maybe this one time my work would matter more than appearances. Harrison Blackwood cornered me near the champagne fountain, Arthur's most important client, the one who controls half of Arthur's quarterly bonuses. His laugh cut through the string quartet. Arthur, I didn't know you hired the garden staff for your parties. Arthur's face drained white. Later, Eleanor's hand found my elbow, her fingers digging in hard enough to leave marks through the silk of my dress. You humiliated this family, Ava. It will not happen again. The words were quiet, but they landed like a verdict. That was the night they decided. I saw it in the glance Arthur and Eleanor exchanged over their champagne flutes. The Austin exile crystallized in that moment, fully formed, just waiting for the right stage and the right props. The pattern started long before that, though. I was 8 when Meredith's piano recital overlapped with my science fair. I'd won first place, created a working water filtration system from household materials. My teacher, Miss Peterson, said it was the most advanced project she'd seen in 20 years of teaching. My trophy gleamed on the kitchen counter, catching the late afternoon light. Meredith's recital is at 4, Arthur said, jangling his car keys. Dad, the awards. Rebecca, he caught himself, corrected. Ava understands sacrifice. We drove to Meredith's recital. My trophy stayed home on the kitchen counter. I understood sacrifice. I understood when debate team got canceled for me so Meredith could have mock trial. When internships got declined because family obligations mysteriously appeared. Anytime Meredith needed a cheer squad. My environmental science degree was expensive charity work, while her Yale law acceptance was framed in the dining room. Literally framed. Gold matting, centered under the chandelier. I understood that I was the daughter who just didn't quite fit. Now Eleanor watches me across the country club table, waiting for tears. Arthur's already reaching for his water glass, preparing his speech about responsibility and fresh starts. Meredith's thumb hovers over the record button. I let the silence stretch a little longer. Let them savor what they think is victory. Thank you, I say. My voice stays level, steady. I'll be smart with it. Arthur's shoulders drop. Eleanor's smile turns genuine, relieved. The Ava problem, finally solved. Meredith's disappointment flickers across her face. No tears for her video, no drama for her Instagram story. She tilts her phone anyway, capturing my dry eyes like it's a twist she can spin later. I fold the check with deliberate care, crease it once, and slip it into my purse. The paper is thick, expensive. The kind of check Arthur uses for important transactions. Transactions that have terms and consequences, even when nobody says them out loud. They have no idea what I already know, no idea what I've already done, no idea that $5,000 isn't a lifeline to me. It's a prop in their performance, a rounding error next to something they can't imagine I could build without them. 6 months before the Velvet Box and the Austin ticket, I sat in Professor Kalin's office at Stanford while he demolished my TerraSense proposal with the kind of precision surgeons use to remove tumors. The idea is fine, Ava. He tapped his pen against my printed presentation. 3 months of work, reduced to 18 stapled pages. But the data is thin. This is just a class project. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Someone's coffee maker beeped down the hall. Normal sounds in a moment that felt like falling. I'd expected pushback. Questions about methodology, concerns about scalability, not dismissal. What would make it more than a class project? I asked. Proof that your algorithm works outside a controlled environment. He slid the proposal back across his desk. Right now, you have theory. Investors want results. I walked back to my apartment through campus, past students celebrating the end of finals, past the coffee shop where Meredith and I used to study before she transferred to Yale. The proposal felt heavier in my backpack than it should. Theory, just a class project. I'd heard variations of those words my whole life. From Arthur when I chose environmental science over economics. From Eleanor when I tried to explain carbon sequestration instead of discussing wedding venues like Meredith. From every family dinner where my research became background noise to Meredith's latest achievement. But Professor Kalin wasn't family. He didn't have a stake in my failure, which meant he was right. I spent the next 3 weeks living in the university library, surviving on vending machine snacks, stale coffee, and the kind of determination that only years of being underestimated can ferment. The Callaway Innovation Grant application wanted 12 pages. I gave them 30. They wanted 1 recommendation letter. I secured 4. They wanted a budget breakdown. I built a full financial projection model at 3 a.m, eyes burning, fingers trembling. The acceptance email arrived at 2 a.m. 75,000. I called home from the empty lab, too excited to wait for morning. The hum of the fume hood sounded like applause. Eleanor answered on the 4th ring. That's nice, dear. Her voice sounded distant, distracted. Listen, Meredith just made Yale Law Review. Can you believe it? The youngest editor in 15 years. Mom, I won the Callaway grant. It's one of the most competitive. That's wonderful, Ava. I need to go. Your father is on the other line with the Yale Alumni Association. The click of disconnection echoed in Stanford's empty lab. The fluorescent lights hummed. My laptop screen glowed with the acceptance email. $75,000 of validation that couldn't compete with Meredith's latest trophy. I looked at my TerraSense proposal, at 3 weeks of sleepless work, at proof that I could build something real. And I got back to work. Now, sitting in the country club dining room, my family thinks they're writing the final chapter of my story. They think the ticket and the check are the beginning of my life in exile, the moment I finally accept their version of me. The embarrassment, the lost cause, the girl who needs a fresh start funded by their generosity. They don't know there's another story running parallel to this one, another set of numbers, another future already in motion that has nothing to do with Austin or with their approval. They don't know that what they see as an ending is, for me, just a very convenient place to close the book on them. I raise my water glass and smile, let them think it's gratitude. It's not. For the rest of dinner, they chatter lightly about Meredith's latest publication, about Arthur's quarterly numbers, about Eleanor's charity board. Not once does anyone ask why I'm so calm. They think they've solved me, contained me, packed me neatly into a velvet-lined box, like the plane ticket still sitting on the table. But part of me feels almost weightless, because 6 months ago, the version of me they thought they were exiling no longer existed. The girl who let family dismiss her had died in a lab, surrounded by error logs and drowned crops. The woman sitting here now was built out of failure and sleeplessness, and the stubborn refusal to let humiliation be the final word. I sip my water and let their voices fade into a soft blur as memory pulls me back into the thick of what came next. After that late-night disappointment call, after the Callaway grant acceptance, I threw myself into TerraSense like it was the only oxygen I had left. Maybe it was. The grant money vanished quickly but purposefully. Interviews with developers in Bangalore, redlining contracts, writing clauses that ensured my sole ownership of every line of code. For the first time in my life, I was building something that nobody in my family could take credit for. Something nobody could diminish with a raised eyebrow or a half smile. David Morrison joined 3 weeks later, a part-time data analyst, high school physics teacher by day, quiet genius by night. He brought diagrams, questions, and a willingness to push back when I missed something. He was the first person to talk to me like my ideas weren't a hobby, like they were worth time, worth sharpening. We spent nights in the Stanford basement lab surrounded by whiteboards that looked like conspiracy maps. Calibration protocols spilled across tables. Code logs blinked on side monitors like restless eyes. Professor Callan would sometimes pass by the lab at 10 p.m., see us buried under equations, and say nothing. But he'd leave fresh coffee on the counter. I didn't realize until much later that this was his way of giving permission to keep going. By March, TerraSense had evolved into a living thing. A sensor network, predictive moisture modeling, real-time irrigation commands. My theory had turned into a system that breathed. So when I signed the pilot contract with the Fresno farm, I felt something like pride, like maybe my life's work was finally stepping out of the class project box. Tuesday, TerraSense went live. Thursday, my stomach dropped. Data spikes, moisture readings that made no physical sense. The algorithm triggered irrigation cycles too frequently. Black lines of water seeped across the farm's test plot on my screen, spreading like bruises. I stared at the numbers until they blurred, called the farmer, recalled the calm in his voice. Too calm. We're shutting it down, Ava. Give me 48 hours, please. I can fix this. You've had 3 months. The crop doesn't get 48 hours. He hung up. The silence after that was so loud it felt physical, pressing against my ribs, crawling into my throat. Because I just destroyed 30% of his crop. Because my system, my creation, my future had failed spectacularly. Because the humiliation felt bone deep. The worst part was knowing exactly what my family would say. I didn't have to wait long. Arthur's voicemail came first. Ava, I heard about your agricultural experiment. Perhaps it's time to consider something more suitable, something stable. Suitable, stable, words that sounded like cages. Eleanor texted 10 minutes later. Darling, there's no shame in trying. Not everyone is meant for entrepreneurship. Then Meredith. 3 crying, laughing emojis followed by, heard you drowned some vegetables. I turned my phone off. Let their words dissolve in the dark. Let the shame burn itself out until only something sharper remained. For the next 3 weeks, the lab became my home. I slept 2 hours at a time in a rolling chair, ate Thai food I barely tasted. My hair twisted into knots. My reflection looked like someone I would have pitied a year ago. But the deeper I went, the more clarity I found. Every failure log, every line of corrupted data, every sensor misfire. And then at 2:30 a.m., on the 21st day of my self-imposed exile, I saw it. A single flawed variable initialization. One small, elegant line of code with catastrophic implications. Something so tiny it hid perfectly until the right conditions spotlighted it. I almost laughed. It was beautiful in its destruction. Then I rebuilt everything. The new algorithm didn't just work. It adapted, learned. It caught errors before they cascaded. I tested it harder than I'd ever tested anything in my life. It responded like a creature that refused to die. The next morning, I sent the recovery data to Professor Kalin. He called me an hour later. Conference room, 9 a.m., bring everything. He didn't sound excited. He sounded serious. Serious meant possibility. When I walked into the conference room with 3 months of data, he slid on his glasses, examined my findings in silence, then picked up his phone and started dialing. You're presenting at the AgTech Summit, he said without looking up. Don't make me regret this. The presentation was brutal. 45 minutes of defending every line of code, every assumption, every data point. Aggressive questions from panelists. Technical cross-examination from engineers. Julian Vance, sitting in the 3rd row, nodding slowly during the resilience section. 2 days later, 4 senior engineers from AgriCorps grilled me over video call. Their questions were scalpel sharp, but I had documentation for everything, every test, every failure, every revision. Years of being underestimated had made me meticulous. When the call ended, I sat in the quiet lab with my heart pounding in my ears. 24 hours later, the acquisition offer came in. $8,500,000. Director of Sustainable Development at AgriCorp's Chicago headquarters. The wire transfer hit my account 2 days after that. I didn't tell anyone. Not Professor Callan, not David, certainly not my family. Keeping it secret felt like reclaiming every piece of myself they'd chipped away. Now, sitting at the country club table, watching Eleanor dab at imaginary tears, and Meredith adjust her camera angle like she's preparing a documentary on my downfall, I feel something almost like serenity. They think the one-way ticket is a solution. They think the check is a lifeline. They think their dismissal is shaping my future. But the truth is simple. They're already part of a past I've outgrown. A past that taught me resilience through neglect. A past I no longer need to survive. The waiter sets creme brulee in front of us. My favorite, Eleanor claims. I haven't liked the texture since I was 12. I crack the sugar with the back of my spoon. The sound is sharp, final. I really appreciate this, I say softly. Eleanor beams. Arthur softens. Meredith angles the camera. They each think they're winning. But the only thing they're winning is distance. And I've never been more ready for that in my life. Sunday morning light filters into my apartment, scattering across 2 open suitcases on my bed. I've pulled out just enough clothes to make it look like I'm preparing for a quiet, humble life in Austin, a performance my family will absolutely expect and absolutely believe. The truth sits in a folder under my desk, a corporate relocation package, a Chicago lease agreement, and a salary that would make Arthur's eyes water. But none of that can exist yet, not in their world. I'm zipping up the second suitcase when the doorbell rings, twice, in quick succession. Precisely the way Eleanor rings when she wants to seem casual while orchestrating an ambush. I check the peephole. There she is. Perfectly pressed linen pants, blowout hair, Sunday brunch makeup, holding a Starbucks latte like a lifestyle accessory. I take a breath and open the door. "Darling," she coos, sweeping into the apartment before I can step aside. "I just thought you might need help packing." She doesn't wait for an answer. She never has. Her eyes sweep the room with realtor precision, assessing, judging, categorizing. I can almost hear her inner checklist, messy, emotional daughter, leaving behind all the wrong things, carrying all the wrong dreams. "Moving is so overwhelming," she sighs dramatically. Overwhelming. As if I haven't orchestrated a corporate move, furnished an apartment in a city she's never set foot in, and negotiated an executive relocation contract, all without her noticing the slightest shift in the wind. I gesture toward the suitcases, just finishing up. She sets her coffee cup on my counter, no coaster, of course, and immediately picks up my Stanford diploma from the pile beside the suitcase. She runs a manicured finger across the glass. "You won't need your diplomas in Austin, dear. Fresh starts mean leaving everything behind." The diploma is fake, a professionally printed duplicate I bought last week. The original already hangs in my Chicago penthouse. "You're right," I say. "I'm trying not to cling to old things." Her eyes soften. "I'm so glad you're embracing this. It's mature." Mature, that's what she calls surrender. She moves to my closet and pulls out my best blazer, the tailored navy one, the one she once said made me look too assertive. Then she frowns. "And this is far too formal for Austin's casual culture." I nod. I was thinking the same. I fold it into the suitcase with careful, deliberate movements. She watches me pack thrift store jeans and clearance rack sweaters, every single item chosen specifically to persuade her that I'm stepping into a small life, a manageable life, one she can comfortably narrate to friends. She nods approvingly at each choice. "Your father and I are so proud of how you're handling this," she says, settling onto the edge of my bed. "Not every young woman has the maturity to accept guidance with such grace." Guidance, control wrapped in silk. My phone buzzes on the nightstand. Eleanor glances at it, but I pick it up before she can see the preview. Julian Vance's assistant confirming furniture delivery times. I silence the screen. "Just the airline," I say, confirming my flight. "Good," she says, standing. "I'll drive you to the airport tomorrow. I want to make sure you get off safely." There it is, not worry. Verification. She wants proof that her plan has taken root. She wants to watch the exile begin. "That's really thoughtful," I say. I walk her to the door. She kisses my cheek lightly. The smile she gives me is the same one she gives bank tellers and charity donors. Polite, distant, comfortable. When she leaves, the apartment falls into a quiet that feels like oxygen. I sit on the bed among the suitcases full of decoy clothes. My real life is already packed, sent ahead to Chicago days ago. My corporate apartment overlooks Lake Michigan, and the key will be waiting with the concierge. On my nightstand sits the Austin boarding pass, the one I bought myself, printed at home, with a departure time Eleanor will proudly watch from behind airport glass. It will never be scanned. My real boarding pass, a different airline, different terminal, different city, waits in my email. The symmetry is beautiful. They taught me this game, how to perform one reality while living another, how to let people see what they expect, not what's true. I just became better at it than they ever were. Monday morning. The airport is humming with business travelers and families dragging roller suitcases, the kind of noisy anonymity that makes everyone invisible. Eleanor stands with me at the Austin flight departure gate. She holds my arm delicately, like I might bolt without her steady grip. "You're doing the right thing," she says. I smile. I know. The flight begins boarding. Groups 1 through 3, then 4. Eleanor nudges me forward. "Go on, dear." I hug her. She holds on a little too long, like the performance has become real, even to her. When I step back, her eyes are glossy. "Austin will be good for you." "It will," I whisper. Then I turn, walk toward the gate, and, when she can no longer see me, slip behind a pillar and let the boarding line pass me. When the plane door closes, Eleanor is almost certainly standing at the window watching it taxi away, thinking her daughter is neatly packaged into her new, simplified life. I wait 5 minutes. 10. Then walk calmly to Terminal B. "Welcome to United," the gate agent says. "Headed to Chicago?" "Yes," I say, handing over the real ticket. "Chicago." The scanner flashes green. As I step down the jet bridge, my phone buzzes, a flurry of notifications exploding against my palm. Forbes, Agricor, Stanford, Professor Kalin, Marcus. The first headline loads, "Agricorps acquires. Revolutionary startup. TerraSense for $8.5 million. Founder Ava Sterling to lead new Sustainable Development Division." My photo appears beneath it, the professional headshot Kalin insisted I take. I'm smiling confidently, the kind of smile Meredith tried to crop out of every family picture. LinkedIn is on fire. Colleagues tagging me, Stanford praising me, engineers I've never met congratulating me. Then, Agricor official statement, announcing Director of Sustainable Development, Ava Sterling. Professor Kalin posts a photo of us at the grant ceremony. Marcus's thread calls me a visionary founder. Stanford's account quotes part of my summit presentation. The tech community is buzzing. My phone vibrates nonstop. And then the family WhatsApp messages begin. A chorus of confused relatives. "Ava sold her company? $8 million? Why didn't anyone tell us? Arthur? Eleanor? Did you know about this?" I silence the chat. Outside the airplane window, Chicago sits under winter light, gray, sharp, full of possibility. My new life, my real life, already waiting. The moment I land, I have 43 missed calls, 62 texts, 3 voicemails from Arthur's office, and 7 from Eleanor. I ignore them all. Instead, I follow the driver holding a sign with my name. "Welcome to Chicago, Ms. Sterling," he says. I step outside into air that smells nothing like Austin, and everything like freedom. The letter arrives 2 weeks later, Tuesday morning, 9:14 a.m., forwarded to me by Agricor's general counsel with a subject line that makes my coffee taste like metal. "Legal matter, requiring your attention." I click the attachment, expecting a misunderstanding. Maybe a stray contract Arthur forgot to sign years ago. Maybe something about family property or taxes. It is none of those things. The letterhead belongs to Whitmore and Associates, the same firm Arthur uses when he wants to look powerful without raising his voice. It is a formal demand for a family settlement regarding the TerraSense acquisition. They claim that the $5,000 check handed to me at the country club under the guise of a fresh start constitutes seed capital, making my family early investors entitled to a 30% share of the acquisition price, $255 million. Or litigation. I read it twice, then a third time. The audacity is so sharp I feel it in my teeth. They are trying to retroactively convert a shove out the door into an equity stake. They are attempting to rewrite history, again, to turn their rejection into ownership, to turn their neglect into profit. My desk phone lights up. It's Julian from the executive suite. "Ava," he says, voice clipped, controlled. I assume you've seen the letter. Just now. Our lawyers tell me it's garbage. You documented everything, every dollar, every grant, every expense. There's no legitimate claim here. I nod, even though he can't see me. But they're making noise, he continues, calling board members, reaching out to donors, suggesting instability. I take a slow breath. Of course. I know how Eleanor works, not with direct blows, but with whispered doubts, concerned calls, sad little sighs implying mental fragility. Her favorite tools were always subtler than Arthur's. And your sister, Julian adds carefully, is drafting an op-ed, something about how families support young founders. Her Yale affiliation gives it traction. Of course she is. Meredith always did know how to weaponize credibility. What do you need from me? I ask. For now, nothing. Our PR team will handle the noise. But I need absolute clarity. Did your family contribute anything at all, to TerraSense? Funds, resources, equipment, or? Nothing, I say. I have documentation for every cent. He exhales. Good, then we'll bury this. But after we hang up, I sit with the letter in my hands. Not angry, not hurt, just done. Done with the performance of concern. Done with the rewriting of my life into their preferred storyline. Done with being the child they could reshape when convenient. The $5,000 check is the hinge of their entire legal claim. Only one problem. I never cashed it. The check is still in my mobile banking app's queue, photographed but undeclared. Waiting. I open the app. There it is. $5,000. Memo line, Fresh Start Fund. Not investment, not seed capital. Not anything remotely resembling ownership. I stare at it. Then I click deposit. The status bar spins. Processes. Approves. Deposit successful. My account updates. Timestamped, documented, irrefutable. I screenshot everything. The memo line, the timestamp, the bank confirmation, and email the images to Agricor's general counsel. For your records, payment received and accepted as intended. Then I open a new message. To Whitmore and Associates. CC Arthur White, Eleanor White, Meredith White. Subject, Re. Your client's final payment. Body, attached. You will find my confirmation of receipt and acceptance of the payment your client provided as severance assistance for my relocation. This concludes all financial ties between myself and your client. Please direct any further communication to my legal counsel. I attach the screenshot, hover, click send. The email shoots into the ether. 30 seconds later, 3 red receipts appear. Arthur, Eleanor, Meredith. I wait for the wave of panic or guilt or satisfaction. Nothing comes. There is only clarity and quiet, and the long exhale of finally sealing a door that should have never been kept open. I pull up my contacts. Arthur White, block. Eleanor White, block. Meredith White, block. My phone feels lighter. My chest feels lighter. Even the air feels different. 6 months later, my life looks nothing like the one they tried to force me into. Morning sunlight spills through floor-to-ceiling windows of my Chicago penthouse, turning Lake Michigan into hammered silver. I drink coffee from the mug Professor Kalin sent me, the one that says, "Data doesn't lie, letters chipped from use." My TerraSense Innovator Award sits on a shelf behind some industry journals. I didn't mount it. I don't need to see it every day to believe in myself. My calendar pings. Budget review for the Sustainable Irrigation Rollout. Mentorship call with a Stanford senior working on atmospheric sensors. Board meeting for the Unlikely Innovators Scholarship, which funds students whose families don't understand their work. I built that fund quietly, for kids like me, kids who need one adult in their corner when nobody else sees them. The framed $5,000 check hangs in my powder room. People always ask about it. I tell them it's a reminder that sometimes the best investments are the ones people make in spite of the people who are supposed to believe in them. At the Agricor holiday party, the room glows with corporate festivity, warm lights, catered food that tastes more expensive than it looks, colleagues laughing near the open bar. I'm mid-story about TerraSense's rebuild when a man approaches me. Harrison Blackwood. He extends his hand politely. Miss Sterling, he says, earnest. Your AgTech Summit presentation earlier this year was extraordinary work. He has no idea we've met. No idea he once mistook me for hired help. No idea he cemented the moment my family decided I was a stain they couldn't polish. I shake his hand, steady and warm. Glad you enjoyed it, I say, because his ignorance is no longer my burden. A month later, Christmas Eve arrives with snow that dusts the lake but melts on the sidewalks. My phone shows 47 missed calls from numbers I once knew by heart. I listened to the last voicemail once, Eleanor crying softly. Ava, please, it's Christmas. We miss our daughter. Just call us back. For a moment, I stand still, letting the words settle around me like snow. Then I archive the voicemail. I don't delete it, but I don't respond. That night, my chosen family arrives one by one. Professor Kalen with wine, Julian with jokes about the board, Marcus with stories from the field. They bring laughter, easy warmth, no performances, no careful omissions. We eat, we talk, we belong. No one asks about the people who tried to erase me. Later, washing dishes with the lake shimmering behind me, I catch my reflection in the dark window. The same face they once told me wasn't enough. The same mind they dismissed. The same girl they tried to exile. The same woman they tried to control. Still here, still building, still growing, and now finally free. I think of the $5,000 check in its frame. Thank you for the seed money, I whisper in my mind. You taught me I could grow anywhere, even in exile, especially in exile. Then the silence settles around me, warm, earned, wholly mine.